Star Wars 7x7 episode 3069. You know, I feel like we kind of skipped over Life Day in the midst of everything that's been going on over the last couple of weeks. So I thought we would take a moment just to consider Life Day and consider storytelling around Life Day that exists right now. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So Life Day this year was Thursday, November 17th. That also was the day after the penultimate episode of Andor Season 1, and so during that day, that was our 7 Takeaway Breakdown episode. I did say Happy Life Day there at least, so there was some acknowledgement thereof. But usually we take a little time to consider Life Day in more depth. I think last year I revisited the episodes that I'd done all the way back in the very first run of Life Day episodes here at Star Wars 7x7 back in 2014. I've replayed the Bruce Vilanch interview. Bruce Vilanch, of course, was one of the writers on the Star Wars Holiday Special. So this time I thought, yeah, let's just revisit what there is in storytelling, because the folks at Lucasfilm have decided to really own the Life Day situation, even if they're not necessarily bringing the whole holiday special back to Disney Plus. At least they brought the Boba Fett cartoon in their little vintage collection thing, but they've definitely decided that they want to capitalize on it. In fact, a couple of articles recently came out with highlights from what's happening at Galaxy's Edge with all the new Life Day products that are being released. Yes, they are releasing sweatshirts and, you know, those full-length blanket robes that you can slip your arms into, the, you know, slankets or whatever you want to call them. And ornaments and whatnot, and I even have my, you know, Chewbacca Wookiee Life Day plush, and it's all fun and good stuff, but there is actually storytelling that's happening around Life Day, and that's what I wanted to particularly talk about. There are a couple of things. One of them is the Life Day Treasury that came out from George Mann and Cavan Scott. And that has a number of different stories, including one from the High Republic, which we've talked about at length here on the show. And there's also been a Life Day one-shot comic that came out a couple of years ago. It's written by Cavan Scott and Justina Ireland, or stories that were written by the two of them. And I guess what I'll do is I'll link in the blog post for the show's episode at sw7x7.com, and also in the show notes, I'll link to those episodes so you can hear our breakdowns of those stories. Oh, and it's also been mentioned or factored in some comic stories, particularly the IDW Star Wars Adventures, as well as Hyperspace Stories, which is the younger readers comic situation from Dark Horse that took over the IDW license for that age group. Its most prominent mention, though, was in episode 1 of The Mandalorian, when our titular Mandalorian caught the mithril, and he said, "I was hoping to be free for Life Day." So what a wonderful thing that was to be able to hear the name check. And it also gets mentioned in video games, including Star Wars Squadrons, but that seems to be one of the, you know, bigger nods to tradition, as it were, because when you look at Legends stuff, it turns out that Life Day acknowledgements really happened mainly in video games, like Star Wars Galaxies and the Old Republic, where there were annual traditions of in-game things happening in those two particular massive multi-online player games. Why can't I think of what that acronym stands for? And also Clone Wars Adventures, another MMORPG. That's what the acronym is. And I thought I'd share a great quote from George Lucas that Wikipedia has as part of their Life Day entry, where he talks about the idea of Life Day as he was envisioning it. He says, "The core thing to pass on in talking about religion is all religions say one thing, basically, which is love is the secret to the universe, which is compassion, which is love others, take care of others, help each other." And it's such a beautiful sentiment, and absolutely one that's appropriate for the season, even though apparently this was supposed to be an analog to Thanksgiving in the US, but it certainly applies to the whole holiday season. So from me and Star Wars 7x7, I just want to say to you today that I hope your holiday season is filled with love and compassion. I wish the best for you and your family in this holiday season. And we'll circle back and check out a couple of those other Star Wars Life Day stories that we haven't yet covered on the podcast during this holiday season. But for now, that is going to do it for this episode of the show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it. As always, happy Life Day, belated Life Day to you, and may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.